Well, welcome everybody to the latest in the Innovators series of videos. My name is Steve McKenzie, the Chief Innovation Officer here at Momentus Technologies. And today we have with us Andrew Stone, who is the General Manager APAC for Mesh. Before we get into a bit about Mesh, Andrew, thanks for joining us. Can you just give us a bit? You've been around the industry a long time. Just give us a bit of background on what you've done and how you got to where you are now.
Don't know how I got to here where I am now. It's just one of those funny things, life takes hold and you sort of set off on a course and doors open up and you think that's interesting and off you go. But look, short history, running parties and pub crawls back at university, all of a sudden found this lovely buzzword called events and thought, I really like this, crowds putting things together. And that went on to few years on the pro golf tour. I did 2 years of my traineeship as a pro golfer. Back surgery laid me up, probably a blessing in disguise. Wasn't that good in hindsight, but look, a few years on the pro golf tour back then, and that just sort of started opening all those doors, as I said. 2.5 years at IMG, onto supercars, spent a good 8 years there, and then pre-COVID was about 8 years with a company out of Europe in the concert and event space, so in and out of stadiums all over the world with major touring music artists. So the COVID life crisis hit, became a house husband for a little while, and then came in through the door at Mesh, coincidentally, in a full circle moment, through connections I used to work with 20 odd years ago back at IMG. So that's the short history behind it, but in and out of production, suppliers, rights holders, one side of the fence to the other.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks for that. It is funny, the journey that we get taken on sometimes. And, with these Innovators series videos, a lot of the time we're focused on latest tech, latest innovations, that sort of thing. And Mesh was certainly something that, we caught up last year at the VMA Congress, and it was certainly something that piqued my interest. So, for the viewers, can you just explain a bit about Mesh and what the technology is that you do there?
Absolutely. It's a passive data collection service, basically looking at consumer behavior. We install our sensors, I'll show you in just a minute, in and around venues. We can do single sensor, installations on a single activation through to site-wide deployments. Before you started recording, I was talking to you about Sale GP in Auckland on the weekend. We had 25 of them around the venue on everything from merchandise to food and beverage to gate entries, grandstands, corporate, looking at the way people were moving around the venue, where they were spending their time, when they were getting there, how often they visited certain activations, etc. So really great stuff. I said passive data collection at the start, so it's it relies on Wi-Fi technology, phone ping. So essentially, when we set up the sensors around the venue, we are picking up people's Wi-Fi signals. We'll jump to the privacy part in a minute, so don't anyone start freaking out just yet. But passive data collection, anonymized, basically taking a massive blueprint of everyone in the venue and how they're behaving, where they're going, and analyzing that data afterwards.
Pretty interesting stuff as you start to think about using that passive data tracking, particularly around these big events like you mentioned, Sale GP, but I know you do a lot of festivals and things like that as well. How does this sort of thing, or how would this sort of thing benefit a major venue like a convention center or a stadium, for example?
There's a number of different ways it can benefit. I touched on the Sale GP example from the weekend. We had those sensors set up on, as I said, food and beverage, partner activations is a big one, gate entries, etc. If you were going to sort of split it into two objectives here, more often than not, you're going to look at commercial or operational objectives. So, first and foremost, we'll work with whoever the venue is to say, right, what's your pain point? What is it that you actually want to know here about the way that your people are behaving? As I said, that will usually come down to one of those two objectives. So from a commercial perspective, why is this bar busy but not actually working? All right, we've sold this space to X sponsor. Is it the ideal location for them? We start benchmarking them. You might have half a dozen sponsors on site in and around your venue, and you want to start looking at which ones are performing best compared to the other ones. Then there's the operational stuff. So when are people arriving? How long are they spending in this certain area here? Are they going away and coming back? How many repeat visits are they actually having? Even journey paths. So, there's a number of different ways that you can actually have a look at it. For anyone that's been in the events game and venues for a long time, I mean, they're used to the old rudimentary ways of, not rudimentary, it's not the right way of putting it, the traditional ways of just sitting down and analysing people. You can stand there and look at crowds and sort of get a bit of a feel pretty quickly of what's in front of you. What I love about this, and talking about my history, even back to those early days, is you think you can be pretty good looking at it from this angle, but this is almost like a top-down perspective. You can't see what's happening on the other side of your venue when you're standing there looking at a crowd over at gate A. What's happening at gate D. So you start pulling on this kind of data and start to look at it from top down and analyze it. One of the big ones with that, just a great quick example that I quite love when you look at stadiums. When someone scans a ticket in through their turnstiles, okay, you've picked them up. A lot of people say, well, we know when people arrive, we scan a ticket. Well, do you? You got a beautiful big concourse around your venue here. People have been here for an hour, hour and a half. A lot of these beautiful stadiums they're building nowadays have all of these outlets around the venue, and you might pick up transactional data in one of them, but how long are they actually in the precinct rather than in your venue? Chase Center over in the US, great example. He started looking at, all right, well, hang on, a customer journey actually starts an hour, hour and a half before an actual event kicks off, even though they only enter the venue technically half an hour before. We know they were outside for an hour and a half, and that's where all our commercial activations are.
Yeah, that's a great example, and yeah, looking at that data to tell a better story about the journey, as you succinctly put it. I imagine that could also be used from a security perspective in terms of crowd flows in different areas, that sort of thing as well.
Look, yes and no, but more as a retrospective tool.
Right.
So
Okay.
what we actually do, and this is a point we tell a lot of our clients as well, if you're looking for accounting technology, we're not it. We'll talk about other technologies out there in just a minute, but we're picking up Wi-Fi enabled devices. So we actually go through a process afterwards, clean out all of our data, and we're looking at just consumer behaviors. So when you start talking about security risk, etc., these guys work on specifics, capacities 5,000. We were at 4,857. We're not going to give you that. What we are going to give you, though, is actually how people moved and behaved in and around that venue post event. So it does become quite handy in that regard.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks for jumping into the detail on that. And I'm sure you alluded to this before, but I'm sure you get asked this question a lot around privacy. When people start hearing about data collection, and I know you made the point of saying passive data collection. Do you want to tell us how you deal with that aspect?
Absolutely, and it's becoming a much bigger, I don't want to say issue, but it's a much bigger question now. People are actually, companies, venues are now being dragged across the coals about data collection and being compliant with it. We've had many conversations with legal departments wanting to tick that off. So the easiest way to describe it for us is where the GDPR regulation sits, so General Data Privacy Regulation. You've got one of two ways you can go. This side, if you're collecting personal data, could be as simple as someone's gender, right? Just one skerrick of personal information that is identifiable to that person. You need someone's consent. The other side to that is, if we're not keeping any personal data, you don't need anyone's consent. So what we do is we've decided to sit on that side of the fence. A lot of people chase first-party data. That's fine. Push marketing, all of that kind of stuff. It's a question we get. We don't play in that space because we don't know who's who. You could be me and vice versa. But when we sit on that side of it, we collect the data. We figure out, which MAC ID, we pick up a MAC ID, sorry. We then convert that to its own unique independent number. And straight away, that MAC ID is essentially deleted. But the system says, all right, well, I've seen this number before and that belongs to this number here. So there's a split second where it's picked up and then instantly just gone. So, and we are very, very adamant that that stuff goes. We audit this all of the time to make sure that we are compliant, for the simple fact that, yeah, the penalties are quite large. People are secure about this, and look, in real terms, if we are doing anything untoward, we're out of business. So that's not our business as well. So we're very, very vigilant with that process, and a lot of people see the benefit in that. You know, they want to know how 80% of their crowd is actually behaving, rather than 3% that have actually filled out a subjective survey or consented to their data being collected.
Yeah, that's a great way of looking at it. Being able to have a true good sample size versus have people opting in, which we all know is you never get a lot with that. So thanks for talking us through that and explaining how that works, because I'm sure it's a first question that pops into a lot of people's minds.
Absolutely. I was talking to a
Yeah,
legal department just yesterday again,
right,
and
right.
there's a lot of hoops to jump through, but when we get there, it's fine.
Yeah, great. And look, just finally, Andrew, if you had a crystal ball, what do you think that the future looks like in this area? Where is this all heading?
You know, you sent me these questions about a week or two ago, and I still haven't been able to figure out what the right answer to this is. I mean, how far into the
Yeah.
future does this crystal ball go? You know, there's some phenomenal stuff that's out there, literally on our doorstep at the moment. I mean, facial recognition technology, and the conversation around that this year down at the Australian Open is quite a big one. You know, and the applications they're using for security. You know, that seemed like a bit of a fantasy at some point in time, and here it is on our doorstep. There's so many different things that are coming in. There's so many different analytical tools here that people are actually plugging into their business intelligence systems. If I'd love to see one innovation, and this is actually probably my operational history speaking to my current knowledge, digital twins are a big one. You know, looking at recreating venues post event with, or recreating events and venues post event with your ability of actually tracking and seeing people in there. I mean, augmented reality, virtual reality, you know, putting on goggles now and doing training exercises for major events, whether it's volunteer workforce training, security, you know, risk assessments, etc. Doing that pre-event inside a clean venue, easy. To do that post event and then overlay what actually happened, so you can put those goggles on and actually see it in real time and where people were. I think that's phenomenal, and what you can do for that. You know, it's a lot of these systems aren't really tested until the event is actually run, so the true goal doesn't happen till post event. So to be there and do it again in real time would be phenomenal.
Yeah, I love that. Love that concept, and I think you're right. There's a lot of these technologies that sort of have been standalone for as they've been introduced, but yeah, starting to bring them together. I think that's when we're going to see the real benefit of that confluence, if you like, of all these technologies. I can't wait for that to happen. And like you say, it wasn't that long ago that even facial recognition was pie in the sky, and here we are, living it every day at events. So. Andrew, look, thanks so much for sharing your insights with us. As always, great to see you, and love to hear what's going on in your world. And hopefully, I'll catch up with you somewhere in the world in the next few months.
No problem at all. Yeah, anyone that wants to have a look at their venue stadiums, please reach out, Steve, me. Yeah, we'd love to get on board and have a look and see how we can help.